If you had Nintendo almost immediately burning up all that goodwill based on Mario Wonder on your 2023 bingo card, it might be time to get your stamp out, because Nintendo has just announced sweeping changes to how they handle tournaments that, frankly, seems like it's gonna kind of ruin everything. So if you're unaware, NCL, Nintendo's parent company, Nintendo Company Limited, and NOE, Nintendo of Europe, have just recently posted a set of community tournament guidelines that read almost like a contract more than a set of guidelines, and really impose some very draconian regulations on what can and cannot be a tournament that features Nintendo games. And it is a massive document. I'm going to read through it here with you within the update. I don't want to strip out any context, so I'm going to read the entire thing. But I am going to leave a link to it down in the description in case you'd like to read it. But the basic gist of it is this. Community tournaments are now allowed, and anything that actually, generates money for tournament organizers is out the door, is not allowed. Nintendo is basically saying they're going to shut these down. They're going to stop you from making any money. They're also going to impact content creators that run tournaments. So people like me that want to run a tournament over a specific size. And basically, if you want to kind of put food on the table through running tournaments of any Nintendo game, you're out of luck at this point. You can do free tournaments, you can do community tournaments that are below a specific size of entrance. It's a pretty high amount of entrance, but still, if you're a tournament organizer, this is very bad news, and it will likely deeply impact the competitive Smash community. But let's go ahead and jump right in so you can see what I'm talking about. The document is titled Community Tournament Guidelines, and it starts like this. It says, "Thank you for sharing your passion for Nintendo's games, characters, and worlds. Nintendo cares about the community." Okay. "And would like to support individuals who want to celebrate that passion by creating memorable, cooperative, and competitive play experiences. At the same time, we want to ensure fans who are doing so are engaging with our games, characters, and worlds, again, in a way that positively supports other fans, players, and, probably most importantly, Nintendo. In that spirit, we have created guidelines for individual organizers to follow when hosting not-for-profit, small-scale community tournaments," and then in parens, community tournaments, which is a very legalese way of defining how they're going to say stuff going forward, which is why it's there, "involving games for which Nintendo owns the copyright. Nintendo games. Please familiarize yourself with the guidelines below before planning a community tournament. Community tournaments may be operated by individuals, organizers, or for individuals participating in tournaments, participants, and for individuals viewing tournaments, spectators, provided that these guidelines are followed." So they're just defining what they're going to call everybody in this document going forward, which is a very lawyery thing to do. "The community tournament is small scale and not for commercial profit." Nintendo goes on to define it with a list of bullet points. "Community tournaments may not generate commercial revenue except as permitted by these guidelines. Tournaments may include up to 200 participants for in-person tournaments or up to 300 for online tournaments." Like I said, kind of a big number, but if you're a tournament organizer, this isn't a lot of people. EVO draws in many more competitors than this, likely just even for Smash. But it gets worse. Let's keep going. "Organizers that have reached the legal age of majority in their jurisdiction may collect entry fees from participants in an amount not more than the equivalent of £18 or €20 per person. Entry fees collected from participants may be used for covering the costs of organizing the tournament and towards prizing. Organizers that have reached the legal age of majority in their jurisdiction may provide goods and services to participants as prizes. No prize may exceed a market value of £4,500 or €5,000 in total, or include the prohibited items outlined in question 17 below." That's right, there's 17 or more questions. There's actually a lot more than 17. "The total value of cash prizing a single organizer can offer through community tournaments in a 12-month period must be no more than the equivalent of 9,000 pounds or 10,000 euros. So that's saying like you can only give away prizes up to that amount. And as you know, prize pools in tournaments are generally way higher than this. But that is, again, so they're limiting the prize pool amount, which seems just silly, especially because they're saying you also can only use entry fees to cover the cost of the tournament and to then give out money to winners. So the people who put on the tournament have to basically be doing this completely for free. So this can't be a job for whoever is putting these on. This has to be like a hobby that they engage in. They have to just do it for the love of doing it. And that means that, you know, folks that actually do this for a living, that organize tournaments, that organize gaming events, can't do this. Because they'd have to be doing it pro bono, essentially. And then basically it says, you know, when hosting a community tournament, organizers may not receive goods, services, money, etc. from third parties as sponsors. So they're saying even third parties can't pay the people who do this. Like, they're basically saying you can't make anything from doing this, or else you can't have Nintendo games present at your tournament. They're trying to kill the tournament scene, because obviously people can't put on large scale events surrounding Nintendo games and just be expected to do it for free. That's absurd. It's crazy. It goes on to say the tournament may use Nintendo game footage or images under the following conditions. Organizers may show footage of tournament gameplay at in-person community tournament venues for games officially launched by Nintendo. Organizers may use captured footage or screenshots of Nintendo games for any announcement materials of the community tournament, so long as the game has officially launched. So not too crazy there. They're basically just saying if the game is already out and it's not like an unreleased game, then they can use footage. I think that's fine. I think that's fine. That's not unreasonable. You know, I would expect any company to come down on a tournament for an unreleased game. But, you know, it goes on. It goes on. The community tournament is not affiliated with Nintendo and makes no use of Nintendo trademarks or IP except as permitted by these guidelines. Community tournaments may not falsely imply Nintendo is associated with, sponsoring, or otherwise affiliated with the event, and may not be presented as official or endorsed by Nintendo. Pretty standard. The names of community tournaments may not contain Nintendo trademarks or IP, such as Nintendo's company name, logo, product, or service names, such as game titles names adopted from Nintendo games, such as character names. This includes any shortened or modified uses of Nintendo trademarks or IP. So basically, you can't call a Smash tournament like Super Smash Fest or something like that, which seems, again, draconian and silly. Like, who cares if you call it, you know, Smash Brothers Ultimate Tournament 2K23 or whatever. I don't think anybody in Muskegon, Iowa is going to get confused as to whether a tournament is officially from Nintendo or not. It goes on, other than referencing the game name to indicate which game is being played at the community tournament, community tournaments may not make use of Nintendo trademarks or IPs, including logos and character art as part of a community tournament activity, which, I mean, they're basically saying you can't slap game logos on there, you can't put character art on there, which I don't think Nintendo is really going to be able to enforce that. I think they want to. I think this is just the litigious arm of Nintendo getting a little extra today, feeling a little froggy maybe, trying to put their thumb down on people who are organizing small tournaments. I don't get it. I don't know why this has to exist, but there's a whole lot more of it. The organizer adheres to the following additional stipulations. Organizers are responsible for ensuring community tournaments comply with all applicable laws, including but not limited to protection of personal information for participants and spectators and appropriate parental consent for minors. That's a good thing. I mean, they're basically just telling organizers that they are responsible for making sure that their events are safe and conducted within the confines of the law. Organizers must ensure the health and safety of participants and spectators to the best of their ability. Organizers will make full efforts to create a community tournament that is friendly and welcoming to all, and that fully respects the dignity of participants and will not tolerate harassment or discrimination of any kind, including based on race, ethnicity, nationality, ideology, religion, belief, origin, social status, class, occupation, sex, age, disability, sexual orientation, gender identity, or marital status. All good things, just saying you can't be a hateful bastard and run a Nintendo tournament. I'm okay with that. Organizers will not permit gambling or the use of alcohol or drugs at community tournaments. Organizers will make sure that participants and spectators are of age according to the applicable age rating of the game used in the tournament. Okay. I don't think that's going to happen. I think you're going to see, 8-year-olds playing Smash in small community tournaments, even though I think maybe it is E for everyone. I don't know. But for the use of any intellectual property rights owned by a third party, organizers must obtain permission from those rights owners separately from these guidelines. Again, saying if you're using any different IP, you have to get permission from the people who own that IP. That's pretty basic common sense stuff. But again, this is like a very legalese document. In addition, Nintendo games may not be used for community tournaments that are illegal or inappropriately conducted, or could be viewed as offensive or otherwise inappropriate, as further described in question 16 below. I don't even know what an illegal tournament would look like. I don't know, but okay, sure, makes sense. Fail to protect the health, safety, and dignity of participants and spectators. Have sponsors that advertise or promote any entity, products, or services. Promote any campaigns or initiatives based on personal or organized opinions, ideologies, or beliefs. Include anything that damages the value of the Nintendo brand and IP. Fail to follow these guidelines. Involve anything that Nintendo deems inappropriate, which is broad, right? Like, Nintendo can just be like, I don't think this is appropriate. We reserve the right to squash your tournament whenever we want, which is exactly what they say here. Nintendo reserves the right to take legal action against or cancel any community tournaments in its sole discretion, including any tournaments that violate or are likely to violate these guidelines, or community tournaments that Nintendo otherwise deems inappropriate. In addition, we may take measures such as prohibiting individuals who violate these guidelines or engage in other inappropriate acts from hosting tournaments in the future. Nintendo is not responsible for any problems that may arise between organizers, participants, spectators, or third parties regarding the operation of the community tournament. In addition, please be advised that Nintendo will not respond to individual inquiries regarding the guidelines or Q&A. We may update these guidelines and Q&A from time to time, so please check the latest guidelines and Q&A before announcing or conducting a community tournament. If there are special provisions in other Nintendo guidelines, please follow those guidelines as well. Basically saying, we can change these whenever we want, and we're going to, and you need to make sure you're reading this document before you plan or conduct a tournament. And we might also introduce more guidelines in the future that you will also need to abide by, and those may be on a game-by-game basis, and you'll need to consider all of these and all of those. Seems like a lot when you're already saying that tournaments need to be small and community driven, under 200 players, and no one can make any money, and you're going to, have a whole host of things that you're not okay with, and that you can also just, even if the guidelines are followed, you can say, well, we think this one's inappropriate, so we're just going to cancel it anyway. They're really trying to exercise a level of control over tournaments that's kind of icky, very gross, very upsetting, to be honest. I don't understand why Nintendo really seemingly frequently needs to put their thumb on the scale and say, we're just going to mess with tournament organizers. We're going to, you can't play mods for games that are 30 years old that we no longer sell and cannot possibly make money from. We're going to, tell you that you have to shut down your old Smash game tournaments, because why? We don't want people out there playing our older games in tournament settings that we don't control. It just seems that Nintendo has a problem with competitive gameplay and with people keeping the legacy of their games alive. But now, they're even just saying, we don't even want we have a problem with people making money from tournaments. This is just all kinds of gross. It's really icky, because if you go through the Q&A, and I'm not going to read every single Q&A, but there is one at question 3 that really pisses me off, and it says, basically, what are some of the tournaments that are not permitted by these guidelines? And it says, for-profit tournaments. These are not permitted under these guidelines, even if they only charge entry fees and admission fees below the amounts specified in these guidelines. Basically, Nintendo's saying, we want to be very clear. We don't want you to make anything from playing our games competitively. We don't want anyone but us to make money from the enjoyment of our games. And that is dirty. It's gross and it's terrible. Like, These guys are some of the most passionate people when it comes to Nintendo's older games. Hell, when it comes to their current games. And it just seems so awful to just say like, hey, you can't run a tournament. You're not allowed to make a dime from playing a Nintendo game. It reminds me of, kind of that backwards view where some publishers were saying like, oh, we should get money from people streaming our games because people are getting to see the game for free. So we should be able to charge the streamers who are streaming it to a large audience. It's just that same kind of ick. It smacks of greed and just kind of like a typical being out of touch with what the community is and what they want. The Nintendo isn't losing money by people joining a tournament to play a game because, one, the people who would be confident enough in their skill to go to a tournament and pay to enter and then play the game at that tournament, they bought that game. I hate to break it to you, Nintendo, but they already gave you money for that game because they didn't get good enough to put their money where their mouth is and compete against others for a chance to, win a little bit of prize cash by not playing your game before that. Nobody walks into a tournament that is a pay to enter tournament and goes, yeah, you know what? I'm just going to take this whole thing. I've never played this game in my life and I'm going to win it. So I'll easily drop 20 bucks, 20 pounds, 30 euros apparently, because it's always like 10 more in this document. They're not going to say, I'm going to pay half of what this game would cost and I've never played it and I'm definitely going to win. This is not a bad investment at all. It just seems weird to me. And then on top of that, to have the organizers of the tournament be punished like for their hard work. It takes a lot of time and effort to organize any event, especially a tournament where you have to get your hands on multiple consoles, multiple displays, multiple different stations where you can play this game. And you're just telling these community organizers like, hey, you know what? I know that you probably spent weeks, if not months, pulling this tournament together. But you don't deserve anything for that effort. You don't deserve anything to put together what is essentially a celebration of one of our games, one of our products that people are clearly enthusiastic about. You just shouldn't get anything for that effort that you put in. It's disgusting. They continue on tournaments that make it a condition of entry in tournaments or viewing tournaments to subscribe to a YouTube channel or an X account, which is how they're calling Twitter X, that this is recent. I mean, this was published today, but clearly, this has not been written like a long time ago, or any other streaming channel or social media account, or subscribe to a paid membership. So even if the tournament doesn't actually require monetary input from the competitors, like if I say, hey, GVG is going to run a tournament, we want you to, it's a subscriber only tournament, and obviously subbing to us here on YouTube is free, but if I say you have to sub to us to be part of the tournament, that's not allowed by Nintendo. You can't do that. So they're harming creators as well. It just seems really weird. I mean, why does Nintendo care if you have to be subbed to a YouTube channel to take part in a tournament? Why do they care if the tournament organizers, end up actually getting paid for their time and effort in organizing a tournament? Why do they care if there's more than 300 people online or 200 people in person for a tournament? Because they even later in the document call out that if you want to do a tournament that is not for profit, meaning again, nobody makes any money with more than 200 people, they're like, oh, just split it out into multiple smaller tournaments, which is just weird and insane. So they're saying like, oh, well, you have 1,000 people who entered. Okay, make 5 different tournaments. And then what? Like, why does that matter? Why does the number of people matter? They're very clear in that you can only have 200 people or 300 if you're online, and that if you exceed that amount, you just need to make a different tournament, which tells me that, I mean, are they going to police the number of people that have entered any given tournament? Is Nintendo going to be reaching out to organizers and saying, hey, 1, we want you to verify that you're not making any money, and 2, we also want to make sure that you have fewer than 200 entrants into your tournament, or else we're going to shut that shit down. We're going to ruin it for you. We're going to take away all the time, effort, and energy you've poured into this, and we're going to squash it because, oh my God, there were 201 people at your tournament. You should have split that up into 2 blocks of 1 of 100 and 1 of 101, and you should have made completely different tournaments for these people. Why does that make sense? Why? Like, who decided that 200 people was a magical number by which you could no longer call it just one tournament? It seems weird. It's a dramatic overreach on Nintendo's part. It's really gross. It's really disgusting. It's just... It's upsetting. I don't even run tournaments. I don't engage in that activity. I'm not a competitive gameplay person, but this just feels like a company trying to exercise control over their IP in a way that makes players feel like criminals. It makes us feel like we're doing something wrong by enjoying the games that we love, especially games that have been legitimately purchased. And, it's another way of a game company saying, you can't use the product you paid for in the way you want to because we don't like it. So we're going to do what we can to stop you. Nintendo's clearly in the wrong on this one. And it's just, it's nasty. I don't love this. And I wish that one of my favorite companies wouldn't make such awful decisions. I wish that they would just let people be. Let people play their games the way they want to play them, because it doesn't make any sense. You should be able to mod your games. You should be able to, play them in groups of people larger than 200. You should even be able to make a little money playing those games. I mean, I'm on YouTube, for fuck's sake. That's how I make money. So I don't know what the right answer is here. Well, I know what the right answer is here, Nintendo. Just leave people alone. Just let them play their games the way they want to play them. Let people have fun. You are literally the meme of just stop enjoying things or let people enjoy things. Just let people enjoy your games. Just make the games and let people play them and leave them alone. Just let them have fun with what they've already bought from you instead of trying to tell them how they can do that. But anyway, I've rambled enough. Let me know what you think. I can't imagine anybody defending this in the comments, but let me know if you really think that this is a good idea, if Nintendo is in the right for doing this. And if you don't, leave a comment down there. Maybe they'll actually read these and backtrack on this god-awful policy. This is just dog shit. It's terrible. They shouldn't have done this in the first place. I'm done. Thank you for listening to me ramble. Nintendo, fix it. I'm not just disappointed. I'm mad. I'm mad and I'm disappointed. All right, folks. Until next time. Bye.